The Game Boy Color was pretty similar to the Game Boy Advance in that it was an underpowered handheld console which was relevant at a time when home consoles and PCs were going through massive advancements in tech and experimental game design. So like the GBA, it inevitably got some games that tried to punch well above their weight. Because I'm creatively bankrupt with my video ideas, here is 5 graphically impressive Game Boy Color games. Toy Story Racer was a 2001 PlayStation 1 Mario Kart clone by Traveler's Tales, which also had a Game Boy Color version made by Teotex Design Studios earlier that year. This was the first game I ran into while researching for this list, and it just blew me away. The way the 3D effect in this game works is just by effectively displaying pre-rendered or hard-coded visuals from the perspective of the track, and then overlaying sprites on top, so there's no control over how the camera rotates, and the driving feels a little slippery as a result, but what's been made here using this trick is undeniable considering just how limited the Game Boy Color really is. Canon Photo was a 1993 Amiga game by Sensible Software and Virgin, which was gradually ported to a whole bunch of systems like the 3DO, MS-DOS, the Mega Drive, the SNES, the Jaguar, and others before Codemasters finally landed it on the Game Boy Color in December of 2000. It's a surprisingly decent port of the game with some impressive digitized audio and good visuals, but I've included it mainly because of its main menu, which features a cool pre-rendered scrolling army base, and of course its intro, which this port is most famous for. I'm about to show an FMV which does actually run on the Game Boy Color, which to me is just insanely surreal. Dragon's Lair from 2000 is a remake of the classic Laserdisc arcade game from 17 years earlier. Dragon's Lair was unique in 1983 in that it circumvented using conventional sprites for a more traditionally animated frame-by-frame presentation, and it's still unique and interesting to see this on the Game Boy Color. Ported by Digital Eclipse and published by Capcom, seeing this version side by side with the original is obviously a massive contrast with the limited colors and resolution, but the animation here is so fluid and the port is so faithful that you kind of just have to appreciate this port with all things considered. Pocket Studios' Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare from 2001 is another console-to-handheld translation. This is a Resident Evil style game which utilizes the Game Boy Color's rarely used high color mode, which means that over 2,000 colors can be displayed at the same time. And looking at the backgrounds, it's obvious that this game is a step above in terms of color. The way the backgrounds scroll and the character scales is also very pretty, even if it all feels pretty static. Interestingly, this game has instance-based combat, which feels very out of place, but it's obvious why they did it this way. I haven't played the normal version of this game, so I can't compare the two, but apparently this is a decent conversion of the original game, despite all its limitations. The 4MB cartridge size is absolutely massive, as the game features over 300 different backgrounds and 6 different camera angles. It's much more of a stunning tech demo than a good game, but it's worth checking out just to see it for yourself. Shantae is widely regarded to be one of the best looking color games ever made. Developed by WayForward Technologies and published by Capcom in 2002, this game was released over a year after the initial release of the Game Boy Advance, making it a very late Game Boy Color game. Despite this, its backgrounds, use of color, and sprite animation are often compared to that of the early GBA games, and rightly so. It's just so densely detailed and animated, and I particularly like the way the color palette transitions between night and day. It's also a pretty fun game with a cool soundtrack, making it all around a great Game Boy Color game. And that's the 5 games. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any suggestions or criticism, feel free to let me know in the comments or on my Discord server. A couple of weeks ago, I did a live streamed podcast, which you can check out the recording of below. It was with 3 other YouTube game reviewers known by Salokin Sekwa, The Examined Life of Gaming, and Speedy. If you're interested in me, or them, or obscure video games, or killing children, then it might be the podcast for you. It was a lot of fun to make, even if I was a dopey mess the whole time. Speaking of leaving my comfort zone, I also did a cover of that song Ellie sings in the Last of Us 2 trailer. Links for everything are in the description. Whatever you do, thanks for watching, and have a good one.